Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong." That is 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 9 through 10. I am Sandra Flach. Welcome to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. Thank you for joining me today. I pray that you will be encouraged by this episode. The calendar and my lilac bushes say that it is officially May, and that means it is also National Foster Care Awareness Month. You may be aware that many children in foster care carry their belongings from placement to placement in a trash bag. Well, today we have a foster mom guest who is changing that, and I can't wait for you to meet her. But first, I'd like you to check out this valuable resource.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
So 1 in 20 school-age children in the United States has been prenatally exposed to alcohol. And it's like 80% of the children in foster and adoptive placements have an FASD. And most are either not diagnosed or they are misdiagnosed. So many foster, adoptive, and kinship caregivers, these families are struggling. Can you relate? I know, that has been us. Sometimes it still is us. I'm a mom of 2 young adults, both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome. They are now 18 and 20. I know how hard the journey can be, how, there's so many ups and downs. It can be isolating. It's a difficult journey, right? And that is why we have resources to help you. I've been on this journey for over 20 years. I remember when there was nothing, and I've learned and gotten some professional training on this, and want to offer you the resources that I wish I had had many, many years ago. And the more families I connect with and train and interact with, the more, I am determined to get this training out there and to help families, because it's a very difficult part of this parenting journey. So in addition to the support group that you just heard about in our little commercial there, I also offer one-on-one FASD coaching sessions for parents and caregivers, along with in-person and online FASD workshops. So I travel, I can come and do trainings with groups. I also, schedule online courses. And sometimes we schedule them and people can sign up. And sometimes we have groups that will reach out to us and want me to do a training for just their support group or their, group of adoptive and foster parents and things like that. So if you think this is something that you or your community or your group would like some of this training, please feel free to reach out to me because we offer all of those things, as well as a couple scheduled coming up in the month of June. I've got 2 online workshops coming up. Thursday, June 6th at noon Eastern time, I will be doing a free lunch and learn. It's 1 hour of content. It usually goes over a little bit because I stay on the call for Q&A. I'm happy to do that, but it's definitely 1 hour of actual content. So if you're just wanting to learn a little bit more about FASD, I've had grandparents take that training. I've had, children's ministry leaders take that. I've had babysitters, folks that are working with families take that training to get a better understanding. Husbands will finally tune in after, their wife has been telling them they need to learn more. So that's free. It's a perfect opportunity to kind of really learn, the gist of this. But if you're looking for something a little bit deeper than that, I have a 3-hour workshop. It's 3 hours of content. We go a little bit deeper than what we can do in just the 1 hour. So I have a 3-hour FASD workshop coming up, and that is on Thursday, June 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I also will let you know that coming up in October, I don't think you can sign up for it yet, but I put it on the calendar. So we will be promoting it here eventually. But starting in October, I'm going to be offering the 18-hour deep dive, and that is rolled out in 6 3-hour sessions. We're going to be trying something new and offering it noon to 3 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays, and that will be starting at the beginning of October. It's 6 consecutive Thursdays at noon, and that would give you the full 18-hour deep dive that I do. So using the facets neurobehavioral model, that's the big training that I do in depth there. So if you're looking for something that deep, feel free to stay tuned, and we'll let you know when you can begin signing up for that. But we do have a couple there to offer you in June. To register for any of our FASD workshops, the coaching, the support group, go to our website, justicefororphans.ny.org, click on the training tab at the top of the page, and you'll see the drop down. It'll say FASD. Click on that, and it'll take you to the page where all of the information and the signups for all of that, all of those resources can be found. Also, before we get started, I always have to do that shameless plug, asking for you all to subscribe or follow this podcast. If you listen on Apple, please leave a review. The reason why podcasters ask this is because the more follows or likes or subscriptions we have, the downloads, all of that, it tells the algorithm that this podcast is relevant. People want it. So it brings it to the top of a search list. If somebody types in that they are looking for a podcast for adoptive parents or foster parents, we want to be at the top of the list, right? With all of the other great ones. So when you follow or subscribe like that, it puts us at the top of the list, and then it makes it just easier for the next family to find this resource. So if you would do that, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So now to our guest. Today we have Jennifer Kritner. She serves as the Vice President of Retail and Company Culture at Unclaimed Baggage. Since joining the team in 1997, her depth of experience include leading the retail operations team, who welcome 1 million guests annually to their facility in Northeast Alabama. Jennifer is also responsible for leading the people and culture departments, as well as the company's public relations team. Jennifer also serves as the director of Unclaimed Baggage's charitable foundation, Reclaimed for Good. She is passionate about the company's purpose to redeem the lost, unclaimed, and rejected for the glory of God. Jennifer lives in Scottsboro, Alabama, with her husband, Patrick, and their 4 beautiful children. She and Patrick are passionate about foster care and adoption and regularly welcome children into their home. Please welcome Jennifer Kritner. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Sandra. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you too. We haven't met in person, but I've read some of your story and I'm just so excited to introduce our listeners to you as well. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear more about Reclaimed for Good. But first, I'd like to hear about your journey to becoming foster parents. I know you and your husband, Patrick, have fostered. What led to you becoming foster parents?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting story, I think. When I was a child, my heart was always stirred to adoption, the idea of adoption. Even when I was a young child, I just feel like the Lord placed that in my heart. One of my relatives, my uncle and aunt, they adopted two children, and that was very interesting to me. So it just continued to be like a breadcrumb, if you will, of interest in that, even as a young child. And I would often joke with my husband. We met at Unclaimed Baggage, where I work now. He worked back in 1997. We met each other and we were married in 1999. And I always kind of joked along the way that, I would love to I love to adopt children. We knew that children would be in our family plan. We both wanted children, and I experienced a miscarriage with our first pregnancy, and then biologically we were able to have two boys. His name's Micah, and he is nearly 21, and the other, his name is Reese, and he's nearly 19. And so the Lord was good and faithful to us in that. But I still had this desire, this interest in adoption. That's how my mind perceived it, was an adoption route. And my husband had no inclination about that whatsoever. He is a man of God. He's a faithful leader in our home. He was a youth pastor, for 15 years of our marriage, ministry, and being in the house of God, being a home devoted to the work of ministry and the work of the Lord, and being kingdom minded was definitely a part of our everyday life. And I had kind of reached this place back in 2018, early in 2018, where I was having some issues medically, and it became clear that I was going to need a hysterectomy. And I was devastated by that. Some of the stages that went up to that, even though I knew likely we were done having children, it was still the whole idea of being done, and I didn't feel done. Being a wife and mother are the greatest callings of my life. I love, love, love it. And so my husband was a coach. And so we went to a basketball game that night, and I was sitting in the stands, and there was a local family in front of me that are known to be advocates for foster care. And they had a new baby in their arms. And people were saying, God, you've got another one. What's going on with this? And they had just moved into a new house. They had told the foster care agency no the night before. And please know, they weren't talking to me. Like, I was not part of this conversation. I'm just sitting nearby and I'm watching it unfold. And he began to say, I could not shake this child from my heart. We were moving. We didn't have any business saying yes, but the Lord made it clear we needed to say yes. And I'm sitting there with just tears running down my face, thinking about these children that the night before he was saying that child had to sleep at the DHR office. They had nowhere to go. And so I'm like, Lord, I feel like this is what you're calling us to. I let my husband know that I had found out that the foster care classes were imminent. And he just kind of looked at me reluctantly. And the day came when the foster care classes would start. They're a 10-week program here in our area. And I came home from work and I said, all right, tonight's the night. They start tonight. And he was already in his pajamas and his lounge pants. And he just looked at me and he said, are you serious? Like, you're serious. And I said, yeah, I really do feel like the Lord's calling us to this. And so we went to the first class, which is 3 hours long. And I know him so well. I could see the blood pressure just kind of rising in him, like, because you get the worst stories on the first night, right? They're trying to scare you out of the room. And we got in the car once it was over. And I said, well, he said, Jennifer, I'm just going to be honest with you. I know you feel like the Lord is leading us in this way, but I do not have clear direction from the Lord. So I'm really going to need to seek the Lord in this. And I said, yes, absolutely. I want to be submissive. I want us to be in alignment and agreement. Absolutely. And so the very next day at school, he is a teacher. He reached out to me and he said, you are never going to believe what has happened. There was a young believer in the school. And she did not know us personally. She had no idea of where we were walking in, the decisions we were facing. She did not really know me. She walked by Coach Kritner and she said, hey, Coach Kritner, I dreamed about you last night. And she just kind of kept walking. And then she turned around and said, do you want to hear the dream? And he said, yeah, I do want to hear the dream. And she said, well, we were at a basketball game and you were coaching and your wife was sitting in the stands and she was taking care of a child that was not hers. And
Mm.
people were coming alongside and ministering and helping her take care of that child while you were coaching. Isn't that weird? And he was like, you have no idea. Just how
Oh, wow.
confirming that, yes. So I know that was a lot of detail. All to say the Lord is just incredibly faithful. And those breadcrumbs along the way that, I'm still the one that is the most open armed when it comes to this. And I think in our years with foster care, we've kind of learned that typically one spouse will be a little bit more gung ho than the other spouse. That's not uncommon. But my husband would tell you time and time and again that it's stretching, it's uncomfortable, but it is God's call in our life. And we've seen the Lord act in marvelous ways on behalf of children in our care and even in our own lives, in our own sons' lives. I feel like our own boys, biological sons, they needed to see this work play out. They needed to see unconditional love like this play out. I needed to see it play out. I had no idea, Sandra, how much pride I had in my own heart. The Lord always reveals to me on a regular basis how much pride is still in my heart. But just some of the tantrums and some of the behaviors that would be played out in public with foster children, you just felt such judgment and shame, from people all around you, just, darts and daggers. And, it's humiliating sometimes and embarrassing. And I didn't realize how much I needed to die to myself in this process of foster care and adoptive care. So anyway, that's a little bit of our initial kind of how we got started story.
Wow, incredible story. Love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, how many years have you been fostering and how many kiddos have you
Yeah,
fostered?
so we have been fostering since 2018, and we have welcomed, I believe, 9 children into our home. I will say only one of them has been able to be reunified back to their biological mother. I'm so proud of her. That mom did the hard work. She's clean. She's not on any substances. She has a job. She has a car. She has a safe place for the children to live. And I'm so proud of her. But it's amazing that out of those 9 children, all of the children had to be adopted, either
Mm.
from my husband and myself or other family members or other foster parents in our community. So reconciliation is absolutely the goal. I celebrate that mother that did the hard work. And that
Mm.
was one of the things I told that particular foster child is you need to be proud of your mom. You need
Mm.
to see the work that your mom is doing. There are so many children that have come through our home that has not been the case. That their
Mm.
moms, they won't even do the very first step oftentimes to get their children back. But look at all your mom's doing. You need to be proud of your mom. This is one of the hardest things she will ever do in her entire life. And look, she's doing it for you. So
Mm.
it's been really great to still be connected to that family. She'll drop her off so we can take her to church, and usually about once a month. So it's been great to stay connected with her.
Oh, that is wonderful. And you said you adopted some. Tell us about that.
Yes. So we have adopted 3 daughters. Back in, let's see, our very first foster child came to us in September of 2018, and our second foster child came to us in September of 2019. And she was a beautiful little girl, wasn't quite 2 years old. Her name was Juliana. And they were a sibling group of 4. And I began to be, just through visits, with biological mom, familiar with her other siblings. And there was one sibling in particular, her older sibling, Nevaeh, that just really connected with me. And so when our first foster daughter moved on to her adoptive home, we had an opening. And so I just reached out to DHR and said, if there's ever, an opportunity for this for one of the girls, but I knew one in particular would be the most likely to need a place to go. We're very committed to Juliana. Please just, we want to be of service to her and her family. And so sure enough, within a couple of weeks, we welcomed her older sister, Nevaeh, and Nevaeh was 5 at the time, right as COVID was happening in 2020. And so by 2021, I believe we were able to adopt both of them. And so they're officially Kritners. Nevaeh's 9 now, and Juliana is 6. And
Mm.
then last Halloween, on October 31st, we were able to adopt our precious baby. We call her Amelia Grace. She came to us in March of 2022. And so we were able to adopt her. She had a number of challenges, but it's amazing to see how far she's grown and how far she's come. So it's just such an honor and privilege to be able to be a part of these children's stories. My boys are older now. They're in college and, they come and go from home depending on semesters and that type of thing. And I just love being a mother so much. It's such a gift. But I still get to tuck little ones in at night. And I sometimes am just overcome with emotion as I'm just so grateful that God let them be a part of our family. I mean, it is hard. I'm not even going to pretend that it's easy or pretty and beautiful all the time, in the sense of how the world sees beauty. But man, it's beautiful at the same time, kind of beauty for ashes, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And it's difficult, as the journey is, what an honor it has been, to think that the Lord has entrusted those three little lives to us forever. We call them forever Kritners. There's, nothing anybody can do about it. My husband's done a lot of studying about adoption in scripture and just legally about adoption. And it would be easier for us to not be parents of our biological sons than it would be for us not to be the parents of our adopted daughters. And what a beautiful testimony that is to be the sons and daughters of the King, right? Just so beautiful to see just that spirit of adoption and to know that we were adopted, in our sin and our wickedness and our wretchedness. I tell you what, Sandra, one of the things with our first adoption with Nevaeh and Juliana, within a week, it seemed like it was about a week before adoption, maybe 2 weeks before adoption, we got the background summary for the girls. And that's where they take all of the history, and we got a similar thing with Amelia. But it hit me like I just sat there and I read it all, about bio mom, what we knew about bio dad. And it's heartbreaking, it was just gut wrenching. And I'm like, but you know what? This is exactly what the Lord does for us. There's this background summary on all of us. There's this sinful life and this sinful past. And the Lord looks at it and he takes us in no matter what. There's nothing those pages that would have said that would have made us say, these girls aren't going to be Kritners forever, and just that, to me, it's just such a beautiful picture of the heart of Jesus toward us, his, God's children, that he would adopt us in our sinfulness, in our wretchedness, in our wickedness. I'm just so thankful that he chose adoption.
Yeah, I love that. I write about that in my book. I'll send you a copy of my book. Yeah.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah, my book is Orphans No More, A Journey Back to the Father. And it's really what I learned about, our spiritual adoption as children of God through the lens and the experience of being an adopted mom. So,
wow.
Love exactly what you're saying there. So, and definitely it is beauty for ashes, and it's beautiful and it's messy all at the same time.
Yes.
So Jennifer, what have you found to be some of the rewards of adoption and foster care, and then some of the challenges?
Yeah. So I think some of the rewards are obvious, right? You get these beautiful children that you get to love for a season. Let me say this, that you get to care for a season. You'll love them forever. Every child that has ever walked in our doors is part of my heart. And I would move heaven and earth right now if I got a call that one of them needed us. And so it's amazing to me how your heart just kind of grows and expands with every phone call, with every interaction. That's been to me, it's really miraculous. I would say just the love that you get to experience, that the friendships that you get to build through foster care. So some of the social workers have become dear friends of mine. The people that you root for, you advocate for, other foster parents. We've kind of created a prayer community, if you will, where foster moms, hey, we've got this court date coming up. Will you remember us in prayer? So just that sense of community, where like-minded people with similar struggles are there just rooting for each other and praying for each other, I think has really been a huge benefit that came out of it. For my biological sons to see sacrificial love on display, our very first foster child, I will love her forever and ever and ever. I called her Jossie Bell. And Jossie Bell was 4 when she came to us, but she was really angry. And she would hurt me physically. We were the 5th place she'd been in a year. And, bruises, bite, scratch, humiliation, untold humiliation in public, just taking my glasses, throwing them across basketball courts, just all out fits of rage in, retail stores. One night in particular, she was really taking it out on me. My husband wasn't home, and one of my boys said, "Mom, why are you doing this? Why in the world would you continue to do this?" And when I say this is not pin on me at all. I said, she needs to know what unconditional love looks like. Like, she thinks she can be just as bad and just as mean as she wants to be. And ultimately, maybe she'll get to go back to this place that's really unhealthy for her right now. And that's all she's known. She's known fit after fit, people giving up on her. And we're not going to give up on her. We are not going to give up on her. Jesus would not give up on us in this situation. We are not going to give up on her. And what's great about that is, being able to see the supernatural hand of God and his faithfulness in those situations. One of my weakest character traits is patience. And I tell people from time to time, these foster children, these adopted children are getting a different mom than my boys had, quite honestly.
I hear you.
Because I was not a patient mom with them. And I'm not always patient now, but I could look at that situation and tell you that that was not me. Like, the flesh, Jennifer in the flesh would not have been that forgiving, would not have been that permissive and just trying to figure out, what boundaries, like how to help her feel safe and to know that because ultimately after those fits, she would break, she would cry, she would crawl up in my lap and say, "Mommy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mommy. I'm so sorry." And so I think another great thing about foster care is I've been able to see the supernatural hand of God that allows grace, grace, grace. When we are naturally weak, in my own weakness, he has proved himself strong time and time again. And this journey of foster care has really developed my walk with the Lord and taken it to new places and deeper places that it would not have gone. And I think the same thing is definitely true for my husband and certainly my sons, because they've been able to see this play out. They've had opportunity to walk that out in ways I don't know that they would have been able to previously. And some of the hard things, I would say the system is frustrating. You're advocating for these children. You want to see the best outcomes for them, but sometimes you just scratch your head. And what I've known from social workers who've become friends is they feel just as frustrated. They feel just as, their hands are tied sometimes, with maybe a decision a judge will make, or it feels like everything about the system is so slanted toward biological parents. And while I fully understand reunification is the goal, there's some real hurdles to overcome with that. And
Yeah.
I think as foster parents, we're more engineered or wired to think with the child in mind, to think about what's the absolute best thing for this child, when it feels frustrating because it doesn't always feel like that's the case, for the system. I think learning how to cope with some of the behaviors, just learning how to tap into resources, whether it's therapy or books. There, been some great books that social workers have connected me with. There's one, I wish I could remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's something about A to Z, but it's like a book. It's an encyclopedia that's filled with behavior. So if you're dealing with biting, you'll look up biting and it's got resources and strategies to help you cope. And so it's been really illuminating, even just coping mechanisms for myself. If it's a child that's working, is dealing with some heavy anxiety, that's an area that I struggle in. I struggle with anxiety, have general anxiety disorder, but learning some of the strategies that help children cope, I've been able to employ in my own life and helped me cope with some of the the stresses and anxieties that we face just in life. And so, taking the time to invest in each child and to learn their story and to understand where they're coming from,
Yeah.
I think is a challenge, but it's also so rewarding. You can't paint these children with broad brushes. They come from all different backgrounds, all different situations, things that seem so basic and standard to us, like having a toothbrush or having clean clothes to put on after you get out of the bathtub and having a bed to sleep in. Those are not givens in most of these situations. And, Nevaeh, I know she dealt with food insecurities, and to this day, she'll be 10 later this summer. That girl's going to clean her plate every single time that food is in front of her, because inside that little head, all the way back when she was a toddler, food wasn't always available. And so you
Right.
kind of see these behaviors, go with children throughout time. And I don't know, it's hard, it's heartbreaking to see the results of some of that, but it's also rewarding when you are able to come alongside and help kind of redirect and help teach coping mechanisms and help them know that they're safe. Some of the most beautiful times that I can remember are the times children felt comfortable enough to say, I love you for the first time, or to call me mom, or to call Patrick dad for the first time. And those are very different for me and for him. Nevaeh, um, the first time she laid eyes on my husband, we were at a ball game. She'd never met him before. He had never been to a visit. She had no connection to him whatsoever. But she took out running. She was 5 years old, and she leaped into his arms and wrapped her legs around him and said, I love you, Daddy. She called him Daddy
Wow.
immediately. She didn't call me mom for months and months and months. I'm like, what's wrong with that? But it was her story. It was, she had a different component with her biological dad than she did her biological mom. And I don't know if I've answered your question, but just digging in to
Yeah.
understand each child's background, each child's needs is challenging,
Yeah.
but it's also super rewarding.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, you answered it perfectly. I can relate to so many of those stories as well. And even just growing in my faith throughout this whole
Yeah.
journey. And that was what I was going to ask you, is how has your faith grown through the experience of fostering and adopting?
Yeah. So there has been a saying that's in my office. Somebody reminded me when they saw the scripture that I shared recently, just about in our weakness, he's made strong and his grace is sufficient for us. Is there has been a slogan that's in my office just out of shot here that says just enough grace for today. And since the pandemic, I put that up in the midst of the pandemic. Lots of things were happening here at my job and shifting and changing. There was so much uncertainty in society. We had let's see how many children we did had in our house during COVID. My husband was an educator, so he was home. I tell him he earned crowns in heaven during COVID for when everything was shut down. He had our sons, he had our daughters, plus we had an 11-year-old boy in our house, which was way older than anything we ever said we would do. But I'm so thankful. There's a whole story about him. I don't know if we have time or not, but just seeing God's faithfulness, time and time and time and time again, that thought of there's just enough grace for today.
Mm.
And when I first thought about that statement, it could almost sound like a lacking statement. There's just enough. We have just enough. But instead, it's a statement of abundance.
Yeah.
There's just enough grace for today. That means God knows ahead of time. He has prescribed exactly what I need, the grace that I need to
Mm.
deal with that tantrum,
Yeah.
to deal with this challenge at work, to deal with whatever's going to come my way, aging parents, their health, whatever it is. God's gone before,
Yeah.
and there is just enough grace for today. That's not lacking, that's abundant.
Yeah.
And grace is that favor that I didn't earn, that I don't deserve, that comes back all the way back to me being just a wretched, wicked sinner. That there is my righteousness is as filthy rags. There's nothing good about me on my own. Anything, I promise you, anything good that is seen in me is a direct reflection of Christ in me.
Yes.
Because I'm not patient. I'm not gracious. I can be a bull in a china shop. I can have, I'm a type A personality. I want everything done yesterday. Dealing with a system where I have no control at all when it comes to foster care, being that type A personality where I make decisions all day long in my job and my role with the company. It's really, really frustrating as a type A to deal with judges and attorneys and, all this scenario. It's very helpless feeling sometimes. But I go back to that scripture that you shared and just this
Yeah.
motto of there is just enough grace for today. And I have seen, and that's helped my faith grow during the foster care journey, is I've seen God's faithfulness to these children. I've seen God's faithfulness to our family, the sacrifices, because let's be honest, there are sacrifices that you make to be a foster parent. It is not sexy, right? There's a lot of stigma even that goes with being a foster parent, or people make assumptions and judgments. And,
Right.
let's be honest, not all foster homes are good homes. And so there's a lot of baggage that goes with that and things that people think in their minds that it is, that it's not really. And so, yeah, God's grace is all sufficient, and I am so thankful for it.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Amen. Thank you so much. You're encouraging me today as well. But in addition, I love all these stories, but in addition to being a foster parent, I really want to get to what you do professionally, because this is just so exciting to me. You're a vice president of retail and company culture,
Yes.
director at Unclaimed Baggage. So tell us about Unclaimed Baggage and your work there. What do you do?
Yeah, so I've been here for almost 27 years. And again, that's a whole God story. Never thought I would be at a place like this for this long, but the Lord again is faithful. In my job, this company is so cool. So we were founded in 1970 by a gentleman named Hugo Doyle Owens. He was an insurance salesman by day. And he was a ham radio operator. That's what he enjoyed doing, kind of, I think, social media before social media was a thing. He would get on the ham at night, and he had made friends with a gentleman from Trailways Bus Lines who was lamenting kind of these unclaimed bags that were piling up. They didn't know what they were going to do with them. And Mr. Owens was a fourth generation entrepreneur, and he said, you know what? I'll come get those. So he borrowed $300 from one grandfather, a pickup truck from another grandfather, and he took off to Washington, D.C. He picked up his very first load of suitcases. There were 110 bags, and he threw them on the back of the pickup truck. I don't know if you know the Beverly Hillbillies, but Mr. Owens would joke that he felt like Jed Clampett kind of driving back through the hills to get back to Scottsboro, and that's really what he looked like. He put an ad in the local paper. He sold out the very first day that he was in business. Everything he had, he sold out of, and he quickly knew he was onto something that had real promise. And so he quickly quit his day job. Mrs. Owens, and these people were precious family of the Lord. They loved the Lord. And I can look back over my 27 years and see the faithfulness of God to this company. And I think we still stand on their shoulders today, and just the faithful legacy and foundation that they set for the company. But Mrs. Owens thought, oh, mercy, we're going to starve to death, right? But God had a plan, and I'm so glad that he did, because I wouldn't be here in this spot today if it wasn't for that. And so yeah, they went full steam ahead into this business. Mrs. Owens ran the business kind of full time during the day, while Mr. Owens was out on the road getting the unclaimed bags and bringing it back to Scottsboro, Alabama. A lot of times people have questions like, well, how do you get these unclaimed bags? And so I want to talk to you just a little bit about that process. So
because you're getting, I don't want to interrupt you, but you're getting you're not getting just the unclaimed bag, but the stuff in the bag that was never picked up, right?
That's right. So the company was founded in 1970. We started with that bus line, but by 1978, we started bringing on airlines. And so for the majority of our existence, we've been heavily airline based. In fact, we have contracts with all major airlines. And so how that works is that if you're traveling and you lose your unclaimed bag or your suitcase, it goes unclaimed, the airlines have 90 days to reunite you with your unclaimed bag. And they're successful over 99.5% of the times. The airlines get a really bad rap, but those kinds of success rates, any industry in the world would be thrilled to have a 99.5% success rate. But when there are millions of people traveling every single day, that fraction of 1% really adds up to a lot of unclaimed bags. And that's where we come in. We joke that we were sustainability before sustainability was cool, all the way back in 1997. We didn't want these items to end up in a landfill. We viewed these suitcases orphaned. These are orphaned bags that need second life. They need a place to go. And so we bring those back here to Scottsboro, Alabama. Scottsboro is in the most northeastern corner of the state of Alabama. We're nestled in the foothills of the Appalachians. And when those bags get here, we've compensated the airlines. We purchased it sight unseen. We don't know what's in it. It could be just terrible, yucky stuff that no good could come of it other than recycle, or it could be, a $30,000 Rolex. We just truly don't know. So when we get these bags here, we have a team of openers, and they open up all of the suitcases, all of the boxes that come through, and they make decisions. Is this item sellable? Is this item, does it need to go to recycle, or does this item need to go to donation? And so on average throughout the years, we've learned that we only sell about a third of what we get. Another third is recycled, and another third is donated through our charitable foundation that's called Reclaimed for Good. We have the largest laundry facility in the state of Alabama. We process about 65,000 units a month through our laundry. So everything is cleaned, everything is laundered that comes to our sales floor here in Scottsboro or to our online store. at unclaimedbaggage.com. Our retail sales floor, we restock the sales floor up to 7,000 items every single day. Our
Wow.
online store loads about 6,000 items a week, and it's really intended to give you a taste of what you could expect should you come to the retail store here in Scottsboro. Our retail facility here is quite large. It's sprawling. It covers about a city block. We have about 50,000 square feet of shopping space, and it's set up like a really clean and organized department store. We have an in-store cafe. We have all kinds of just cool brand features. We actually last April opened up our Unclaimed Baggage Museum. And inside of that museum, we have curated a collection of over 100 of the most fascinating items that we've collected over the last 54 years. And so we have Egyptian artifacts in there that predate Christ by hundreds of years. We have autographed Michael Jordan basketball. We have the puppet, a Jim Henson puppet called Hoggle from the movie Labyrinth here. We have 2 suits of armor. The list goes on and on. There's actually, people ask us a lot, what are the craziest things you've ever found? And there have been at least 2 different times that we've unpacked actual human shrunken heads. There was another time that we unpacked in the side pocket of a duffel bag a live rattlesnake. You truly never know what people are going to travel with. I've been here for a long time, and so I've seen some remarkable things as well, things that have sold that aren't here anymore. There was one time we received an aluminum fire suit, like a firefighter that had this really specialized suit that got lost. It was here. There was a 40-carat Colombian emerald, just loose, not set in a stone. We found it in the toe of a sock, rolled up in the corner of a suitcase. That's how we found it. And we had it appraised back in the 90s. It was like $32,000 appraised value. And so we had it in the case for $16,000. And we had it in the case for a long time. We didn't care if we ever sold it because it was just such a cool piece for media, for guests that come into the store. And what's really interesting, I think, is that we've become one of the top tourist attractions in the state of Alabama. We welcome about 1 million guests a year through our doors. So that's significant. I live in Scottsboro, Alabama, so Unclaimed Baggage being here has provided so much good for our community. Just, the tax revenue that's here, from people coming here to shop or to stay in our hotels or to eat in our restaurants is a really good outcome here for citizens like me. And we actually, right here in Scottsboro, employ over 260 team members right now. So it's amazing when you think about just how dynamic the company is, from being able to receive those items, to cleaning them, to pricing them, to listing them on .com and taking great photos. We have a wonderful marketing team, accounting, and then just retail jobs as well. It's just really dynamic, the jobs that are available. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we can offer that to enrich our community as well.
That is just incredible. And I think as you've been talking, I'm like, I think somebody once told me that there's a store somewhere in Alabama that has all the suitcases that nobody ever claimed. So I'm like, now I know exactly. I know more about it. I'm just curious to know, has anybody ever come in the store and said like, that's mine and I would like it back?
Yeah. So one documented time, this is really cool. So our biggest sales day of the year is our annual winter and ski event. It's the first Saturday in November. We've done it for over 40 years. And so in the late 1990s, I want to say it was 99, I was here working that ski sale, and there was a gentleman, he was a newlywed. He came in shopping the ski sale. He saw some ski boots that he thought, oh, those look like my wife. They were from Georgia. He took them back home, and she's like, shut up. She pulls the tongue back on the boot. It has her maiden name inside the tongue. He didn't know that she had gone on a ski trip months previous with her family and that her boots had been lost. So he had no idea those were her boots. But what are the odds that he was shopping? He saw some boots that looked like his wife. So brownie points for that, right? He knew his wife really well. And those are indeed the boots that she had lost a couple of years previous. So you just never know.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's such an incredible story. So, but in addition to that, just, I love the story and just, shopping local and employing local community members and all of the visitors to the store and all that you're doing, just incredible. But there's another part of what you do, right? And it's called Reclaimed for Good. So tell us about that.
I would love to. It is the absolute heartbeat behind what we do. Every job at Unclaimed Baggage, all of us have the same mission. And our mission every day when we come to work is to redeem the lost, the unclaimed, and rejected for the glory of God. That's what I get to do every single day when I come to work. I get to do that. And so I mentioned these bags are orphaned. That's how we view them. And we say we want to give a second life to every bag. And that may be it lives on in your closet as your new favorite sweater that you picked up online or in store. It may be that it needs to be recycled. We're all about sustainability and paper, metal, fabric, plastic recycle, e-waste. We want to be very responsible and good stewards of the earth as well. But then there's that part that I was telling you about, the donations. I'm telling you what, it is unbelievable the difference we've been able to make with Unclaimed Baggage. And so, for example, there's gifts in kind that come through. We get so much stuff that we could never sell it on, nor would we want to. And so things like eyewear come through. We have given well over 1.5 million pairs of eyeglasses through Lions Club International, our local chapter here. As a matter of fact, this year we're on pace this year alone to give 250,000 pairs of eyewear and sunglasses to this amazing organization. Our local chapter picks up 80 boxes every other month from us. They take it to our local ARC organization, and those clients there love to get involved and clean these and get them ready for Lions Club to take them on medical missions, and optometrists donate their times. And the story we hear back from these unclaimed glasses are just amazing. For example, we heard a story about a Guatemalan single mother who had 3 children. She worked in the textile industry. She did really tedious sewing, and she became legally blind. She couldn't work anymore until Lions Club showed up with these unclaimed glasses. They were able to pair her with her prescription, and she was able to go back to work. Mountain truckers in Peru, if they don't have protective eyewear, the grit and the sand and the dirt permanently damages their vision. Or children in these communities around the equator, if they do not have access to sunglasses, they absolutely are going to develop eye disease. So we, donate eyewear so that those children are protected. Medical equipment, it would blow your mind at the number of wheelchairs, walkers, canes, crutches, rollators that come through the unclaimed process. Again, we couldn't even sell a fraction of them, again, nor would we want to. So we partner with, I don't know if you're familiar with Johnny and Friend. She has an organization called Wheels for the World. They come pick up tractor trailer load from us 2 times a year. And they take those often to prison ministries in Louisiana, where the prisoners love to donate their time to get those ready to go. And then those are distributed all throughout the world. And the videos that we have seen back, I mean, people are literally being lifted out of the dirt and into seats of dignity and opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise, because they don't have the access to healthcare that we do here in our country. So it's just amazing the impact those things can make. One of the charities that's nearest to our heart, it's our very own charity. It's called Love Luggage. About 15 years ago, we read an article in a local paper, actually not a local paper, it was the New York Times, and it was telling the story of foster children that you and I know pretty well, where they're experiencing the worst day of their lives, right? They're being removed from their biological homes. And no matter what I think about mom or dad, or you think about mom or dad, or the conditions those kids live in, or the abuse they've been exposed to, more times than not, that's still mom or dad to those children. And it's still a very devastating day. It is still the hardest day of their life. And they're feeling thrown away. They're going to be placed in an absolute stranger's home. And to amplify that message, they're putting their earthly possessions into a black trash bag. And that just amplifies that even more. And we thought, you know what, that ought not be. We have these suitcases and we want to do the good that we can do in that area. So we don't have a lot of suitcases for sale in our store. And a big reason for that is we donate a lot of them to foster care. We set up painting opportunities in our store and clubs and organizations. As a matter of fact, we went on a 50-state road tour for our 50th anniversary celebration. And we did this throughout the country at various locations as well. We invite people to come paint beautiful pictures, happy pictures, positive words. It may be love or hope or I love you, I believe in you. And then we give those suitcases to foster organizations so they can give them to children. And so I have painted my fair share of suitcases, though I'm no artist. I have coordinated these events where other folks that are artists can paint these. I have taken these painted suitcases to foster organizations for them to be distributed. But in May of 2022, my family welcomed a beautiful redheaded little girl named, we'll call her JJ, into our home. And JJ's situation was particularly traumatic, the separation from her mom. And it was hard. It was very emotional for us as foster parents. It was very emotional for her. Our heart just went out to her. But she said, Miss Jennifer, look what they gave me. They gave me a present. And in that moment, she rolled a love luggage suitcase into our home and she said, would you open it with me? And of course, we put a bow on it. It has a tag on it. The local foster organization had given it to her, and we opened it and it had clothes in there, toiletries, stuffed animals, shoes, books, and it felt like Christmas. I mean, she was so excited about these beautiful things that she'd gotten. Not only was it a blessing to her, it was a blessing to us because we didn't have to scramble immediately to find those clothes and toiletries and things that she needed right away. It was kind of a ready-made blessing even for us as well. And she is the one child that's been able to be reunified with her mom, and she made sure that she got to take her love luggage suitcase with her when she went home. Years ago, when Love Luggage was in its earlier days, we heard this story back from a young man who was about 19 years old and was incarcerated, and he had been in foster care. But when you asked that young man what his most prized possession was, even being incarcerated, he would tell you it was the zebra painted suitcase I got from Love Luggage when I was a foster child. So we know that it impacts people, and it's just a little thing, right? It's, it's not moving heaven and earth, but hopefully it's letting a child have a little glimmer of hope and some dignity and
Yes.
something cool that they can take with them to the next, going back home, hopefully to their moms or dads, or going to the next leg of their journey. And so that's one of the coolest, I think, charities that we're able to support here at Unclaimed Baggage. I could talk to you all day long about Reclaim for Good, though. We give away headphones by the hundreds to school systems, homeless shelters, homeless missions, coat, roughly for every coat we sell, we're giving a coat away. Feminine hygiene products are something that's really needed at shelters, but also in our local school systems. We package feminine hygiene products, and then we also package toiletry items up separately in cute little bags so that teenage girls and teenage young men that may need toiletries can get those discreetly from their counselor's offices or places in their schools, so that they can get what they need. Because again, we would all, I think, be amazed at what people don't have in their home. And we could all assume that everybody's got that covered, but I think most of us would be surprised to learn at how many people don't actually have that covered. So just little ways, we're constantly trying to find ways that we can give back and make a meaningful difference. We are actually able to support a number of recovery homes. There's a beautiful home in Fort Payne, Alabama called the Summit Recovery Home. It's a 12-month program. We give tons. I am talking tons. People say tons is like, oh, that's a ton. No, I mean literal tons. We give literal tons of product to their thrift store called Servant's Mission, and they're able to sell those items in their mission there in their thrift store to then benefit the good work of recovery that's happening for those women. There's a place in Nashville, Tennessee called Eli's House, and it's a home for abused and battered women. We've just started giving to them in a similar way. There's a home in the Huntsville, Alabama area that's specifically for men. So we're constantly looking, trying to find ways like, this is what we have. The Lord's blessed us with this. We don't want it to be wasted. We want to give every piece of goods that come through Unclaimed Baggage a second life. And, even down to things like towels. You'd be amazed at how many towels people travel with, and they're not all perfect, right? They're frayed, they have holes or bleach spots. We can't sell those. A perfectly good way that we could take care of those would be to fabric recycle. But an even better way would be to give to the animal shelters and facilities all around us. So to us, that's a better use for that item than even to go into a recycle center. So again, just challenging what we do and how we give back is really, really important to all of us, because we truly want to redeem the lost, the unclaimed, and rejected for the glory of God. And it is not lost on me in my personal story and how the Lord has walked with me, even as a young girl thinking about orphans and adoption, and how He has allowed me to become an expert in loss professionally, and really an expert in loss in redemption personally as well. And I just think he is just such a wonderful author, right? He's the author and finisher of our faith. And he creates these beautiful tapestries of our lives. And that's my story. Your story is going to be different. And whoever's listening story will be different still. But one thing that remains the same is the constant goodness and faithfulness of our great God.
Amen. I couldn't have said it any better. And I can see, the fingerprints of the Lord all over, this business that you're running and Unclaimed Baggage, because, you could see it was a God thing where he got that idea. The gentleman, I forget what you said his name was,
Yes.
the founder.
Hugo Doyle Owens. And another
Yeah.
just really great thing about them is they tithed. Brian, his son Brian, purchased the company back in 1995. He and his wife Sharon, and have really is just kind of soared from there. And Oprah Winfrey came calling in 1995 and really kind of put us on the map from a world's perspective. And we've just grown from there with the media exposure and great podcasts like yours that are wanting to help us tell the story. But really foundationally, it goes all the way back to Mr. Owens just being a faithful tither.
Yeah.
He had a little Band-Aid box that Brian tells the story about. His dad would always put his 10% in that Band-Aid box and it wouldn't get touched, right? And that would be faithfully sown into the church, or all of the people in our community that might have been in need, and how Mr. Owens gave quietly to them
Yeah.
all throughout the years. And I just think the Lord is faithful. He's faithful
Mm.
to those early humble beginnings. And we just want to continue to honor him with the work that he's given our hands to do. And we really view this as kingdom work.
Wow, it absolutely is. And I love this. So our listeners who like me may be just riveted by the whole story. How could our listeners get involved? I know you said there's an online store,
There
aside from
is.
allowing our luggage to get loosed occasionally, but you have an online store. So how can our listeners get involved and where can they find you?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to go to unclaimedbaggage.com. You can shop online, but you can also learn more about our story there. We have a great marketing team. And so I mentioned that because if any of your listeners are really into social media, we have a great Instagram presence and a Facebook presence, any of those social media channels. Our marketing team does a really great job. LinkedIn is another great way to go find us at Unclaimed Baggage, and Reclaimed for Good has its separate LinkedIn page as well. And we just constantly put those nuggets out there to tell the story, to tell the Reclaim for Good story. There's a blog portion on our website. I think you click About Us, and then there's a blog portion there. And that's a great way to keep up with the giving that we're doing here as we try to tell people about it, because we think it's an important story to tell.
Yeah, it certainly is. We'll make sure that we put links to all of the
Great.
above
Thank you.
in the show notes for this episode. So folks, and I'm going to go on there and follow you guys on Instagram and as well,
Thank
because
you.
I didn't even think of that before we got talking. And I was on your website and I was just so impressed and was
Thank
so much looking forward to our conversation. But we do have to land the plane here,
Yeah.
so to speak. Hey, did you see what I did there? I wasn't
Yeah, I
even
did.
thinking
I like that.
that. But Jennifer, as I mentioned, most of our listeners are adoptive and foster parents.
Wonderful.
We're, all on this difficult parenting journey together. So I always like to wrap up with a word of encouragement for our listeners. So would you offer a word of encouragement for the parents listening?
Yes, I do. I would be happy to. And I know discouragement is easy to come knocking on our door. It's easy to get frustrated and to feel helpless and sometimes even hopeless. But I would just encourage you that you're not. In your weakness, lean on his strength.
Mm,
Because really the work that's happening in the lives of these children are supernatural. And the Lord is just using our hands and our feet and our mouths to accomplish that work. He's allowing that. When ultimately, He's the one that's accomplishing the good work. And so
mm.
don't lean on your own strength, lean on his strength. And he'll see you through.
Yeah, amen to that again. So, Jennifer, thank you so
Yeah,
much
my
for all the
pleasure.
work you guys are doing to help children and the community through Unclaimed Baggage and Reclaimed for Good. And just so grateful to have you with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sandra. God bless.
Wow, what a wonderful conversation and an inspiring story. I hope that you were encouraged today. I know I was. I want to go back online and check out their store and see all the things that were unclaimed in those bags, right? So in addition to encouraging you, of course, we'd like to equip you for your parenting journey as well. Make sure that you check out our website for all of our resources, justicefororphansny.org. If you think that fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is possibly something that is causing the big behaviors that you are seeing at home, we have resources, support group training, all of the things. Go to our website, check it out. There's a link in the show notes, not only for Unclaimed Baggage and everything that we talked about with Jennifer today, but our website, our resources, And my website too, sandraflach.com, where I blog, and you can read my personal blog there. And be sure again to find and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Justice for Orphans is there. Myself, Sandra Flach I'm there. And thank you again for joining us today. I'm just so grateful that you spent your valuable time. I'm grateful to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.